And as I was driving down, I see this white car sitting on the side of the road randomly in this canyon, and it's my brother. He's looking for me
Uh-huh.
because he knew I was out trying to commit suicide, and he was on the phone and crying, and I just felt the weight of the world hit me, and I just gave up. I just couldn't do it.
Welcome to the First Responder Families podcast, sponsored by Shadowproof at FHE Health, a nationally recognized behavioral health provider. I am your host, Ivana Bada, a director of family services at FHE Health and a family, couples, and trauma therapist. Join me for meaningful conversations and talks that support wellness and mental health of first responders and their families. Welcome and good to have you with us. Whether you are in recovery or supporting someone who is, or simply exploring healing, I want to acknowledge the courage it takes to be here and to show up. Today, we are going to talk about something called post-traumatic growth. How people can not only survive trauma, addictions, and mental health challenges and struggles, but actually experience transformation through them. And it is not just about putting a silver lining on pain. It is about recognizing the strength, the insight, and healing that can come from walking through the fire. And speaking of fire, my companion in this conversation is Jim, and he's our alumni from Shadowproof program, our graduate, and he's also a former firefighter with 33 years of service, and who came to face with mental health crises and survived, and has been walking a powerful path of recovery and growth. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you. I appreciate you asking me to be here.
Yes, I'm looking forward to our talk. And I wonder what would be important for you to say, like, where you came from in a nutshell.
Um, in a nutshell, can I say something first that I like? And I like to say this, like, if you don't mind, at AA meetings or wherever I speak, I like to say that whatever I talk about, I want people to know first half, I do not blame my childhood. I do not blame PTSD. I do not blame depression. Those were all things I dealt with, but I made the choices. So I like to say that because I don't want people to say when I talk about my family that I was forced into drinking or anything crazy like that. These were all my choices. And that's all I wanted to say before we got going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good disclaimer. This was important for you, to say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So me in a nutshell, I'm 54 years old. Um, I started drinking when I was about 13, and I stayed drinking a 40-year career of drinking, if you can call it that, till I was
Mm-hmm.
53. And then when I had my mental health breakdown due to every situation and facet of the way I was living my life,
Mm-hmm.
it was almost the end. And I luckily had an unsuccessful suicide attempt, which led me to Shatterproof, which began my recovery journey. I didn't go in there with the hopes of being here someday talking on a podcast or talking to anybody. I went in there hoping that I could change the person I was. And man, through all the help I got there, it just made me realize that this is the path I wanted to continue down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, from our first conversation, I remember you said, you found a very empty, hopeless place in your life, and you still somehow, by the grace of some power, right? You still were able to, so hopeless, to come to a place of hope.
Right. The day of my suicide attempt, I everything that I'd been doing in my life, the shame, the guilt, the depression, the drinking, the anxiety, the infidelity, the cheating on my wife, the divorce, everything blew up. It was like I knew I was all those things, and I felt shame and felt hopeless that I couldn't change that person. But when it was exposed to the world, I realized I was never going to change, or at least I thought I was never going to change. And my life went black. And I just decided it was time to die. And so I grabbed a gun, an AR-15, and I went up this random canyon in the mountains to shoot myself. And I had told my wife earlier in the day that when I find my friends back on my iPhone, I would be dead, because that's where I would kill myself. So I went up this canyon, found a remote place, and I grabbed my gun and put it under my chin and pulled the trigger. And I heard a click, which I shouldn't have heard anything, but I heard a click. So that didn't make sense to me. So I ejected that round into my truck, stepped out, fired a round into the hill to make sure my gun was working, got back in the car, grabbed my phone, and it just said SOS. So I had no service. So I decided I was going to drive down to where I had service and do it there. And as I was driving down, I see this white car sitting on the side of the road randomly in this canyon, and it's my brother. He's looking for me because he knew I was out trying to commit suicide, and he was on the phone and crying, and I just felt the weight of the world hit me, and I just gave up. I just couldn't do it. And then we had a few things take place. I got Baker acted, put on a mental health hold for 72 hours, which turned into 5 days. And the only way the doctor was letting me out of there was to come to Shatterproof. And a best friend of mine and my wife did all the legwork, all the research to make sure I had a bed. And they took me straight from the mental health ward to a plane and sent me down there.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, it was everything that could have gone right did for some reason. For some reason. And then the people that I had let down the most were the people that worked so hard to put me in a place to save me.
Yeah. Even just the way how you are sharing that, I have these images of all those people who always cared for you, but perhaps they couldn't get through you, or they couldn't connect with you. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think there was anybody changing my mind at that point of the way I was acting. I didn't like how I acted, but I used all these other defense mechanisms to cover who I was. I didn't like the fact that I was cheating on my wife, so I would drink about it. And then I had the get out of jail free card of, well, I didn't do that. That was drunk Jim. Like that would make sense. I got in a fight with somebody, I could say, well, I didn't hit you, drunk Jim did. I didn't knock your wine over onto the white couch. I didn't take your money. Drunk Jim did all that. Bring it up with him. And, I thought my problems were special. So I just figured nobody had what I had to deal with. So I was going to drink it away, and you couldn't convince me otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was that kind of mindset.
Yeah, it was very, very selfish. Like I would look at it that I was more selfish than anything, because I thought my drinking only affected me. I didn't realize how it affected my family members, my children, my wife, other members of my family that had seen me drink, my friends. I didn't realize how it affected them until I started in recovery.
Yeah. And can you talk about maybe a turning point from having this mindset and then maybe just, questioning the way how you think about your life?
I would say definitely it was my time at Shatterproof. I mean, even as bad as it was to attempt suicide, luckily get away with it because the officers did find the round that had been dimpled in my car. So why it didn't go off. But to escape that, still I didn't want to admit I was an alcoholic, and I kept thinking that, well, if I can get a handle on the infidelity, then I'll be a better person. Or if I can get a handle on the lying, I'll be a better person, because I did not want to admit I had a problem with alcohol. I didn't want to admit I was an alcoholic. I knew it, but I thought because, like being on the fire department, I didn't get drunk every day. I got drunk 2 days that I was off, but then the third day I went to the firehouse. So I thought I was something special for an alcoholic. Like,
Okay.
no, not me. I can stay sober every third day. I thought I was some special snowflake. It turns out I'm just another bozo on the bus, just like everybody else. And so when I went to Shatterproof, I still didn't want to believe that. And it took a little bit of opening up and starting to share like this. And I broke down. I know I broke down in your class one time really bad. It took opening up those emotions that I'd been bottling for years and realizing that the cheating was a problem. But all of these problems were brought on by me and my alcoholism.
Yeah. So
You
there's
know?
something about expressions of emotions and not just kind of having walls and having just opinions about sometimes false opinions about your life, but to actually it took also opening up with people.
Yeah, I think. Matter of fact, I can talk about this story. I think pretty comfortably. It was your classroom, and there was another Shatterproof member who was their significant other. They had found them possibly cheating, but possibly not cheating. It was all online or something. And the spouse was just telling them, no, I didn't do that. I didn't do that. And they were torn between believing it or not. And I was from not the person that got cheated on standpoint, the person hiding the cheating. And I just fell apart and told this person, you got to get out. They are doing it. And this is why. And I opened up myself to that inside, to that raw.
Oh.
And it was like so much relief, but it was horrible. I was crying so hard. And this person was crying so hard hearing my story. And other people were seeing our emotions that it was exhausting, but it was probably one of the best days at Shatterproof.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm just taking a breather here, how the moments like this with others, other human being, how you can actually help someone and also maybe heal some something in your heart and soul.
Yeah, and that's kind of where the program that I'm in. I don't know, different programs work for everybody. AA has been another godsend for me, another great program, and it's because of a lot of this, a lot of opening up and hearing other people's stories. And like I have a sponsor. He's an amazing man, great guy, and he's brought me so far and helped me get here. But he always says that my struggles help him because he gets to share his experience, strength, and hope of what he went through. And it helps him remember where he came from, but know where he is now. And I think the same thing with me. I'm getting to that point where I'm ready to sponsor. And I think it's a matter of I need to keep my story in right here so everybody can see it, because it helps keep me grounded that I do have a problem and I need to continually work on myself.
Yeah. So there's something with you, Jim, about storytelling, the sharing stories, but those real, even the story of you when you behaved not in a way that would um, be aligned with your heart. You behaved in a different ways. So,
Yeah, I don't know, I didn't hate drinking. I grew up enjoying drinking. That's why I did it. I started because I enjoyed it and had fun.
mhm,
I just never saw that breakover point. I never realized we were at the top of the roller coaster. I always thought I was at the tip. I
mhm,
never got the downhill side of it.
mhm.
And till the roller coasters broke down and I'm sitting in the bottom and I didn't even realize the ride's over. So that was alcohol for me. And then as far as the infidelity, I think it was like the drinking in the fact that I knew I had something wrong. There was something not right inside me, whether it was my brain or my heart, but something was not wrong. And so I was finding masking mechanisms, whatever that dopamine rush would be, whether that was adrenaline, whether that was drinking too much, whether that was cheating, whether that was anything that would make me feel different
Different.
about the person inside me, I would use. So take the infidelity, for example. Somebody validated me and basically said, it doesn't matter. You're an okay person. And whether I believe that or not, at least it gave me that moment of, I'm not a horrible person. And I used it like a drug or like an alcohol, just something to cover up how I felt about me.
Jim, you have gone through dark places in your life, professionally and also personally, and I'm curious, if your appreciation for life has shifted or changed since your mental health crisis.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I guess I looked at the chaos of my life before. If I look back at that, I always describe it as like one of those movies where the main character has to go from point A to point B, but they don't want to follow him with the camera through the streets. So you just see this flash of lights as it like almost hyper chambers them over, real fast. They drive over light speed. That's what I felt like my life was before. It was just a blur of lights and chaos. And when I went that dark, I wasn't living. I was just alive. I was just surviving. And now I actually feel like I live. My days are filled with things that bring me pleasure and enjoyment. And, even as simple as an AA meeting. I've got a new job, which is the perfect retired guy's job. I mow a lawn at a golf course, and it's so peaceful to watch. Today I was watching hawks or geese or just the beauty of the nature. Things I couldn't spend time alone before because I didn't like the voice I heard. And now I can do that. So yeah, I truly feel that this has been a lifelong thing that I've dealt with, but I feel like I'm living for the first time in a long time. This is not my first divorce. And I never wanted to blame alcohol because I never wanted to quit drinking. And, as much as I can blame alcohol, it was all brought on by me, but still eliminating that poor mindset, that clouded mind, that poor judgment, that icky feeling inside of me. Getting rid of that has made a total difference towards my life. The things I enjoy with my family or, my friends is just so much more peaceful. I went on a trip to Europe and I remembered it.
Yes.
It was amazing.
Yeah. And really remembering something, you can recall it for later and really have a experience again.
Yeah, on my 54th birthday, I would have never done this before. I was in Vienna and I went to the original opera house to see a Mozart opera. Now that wouldn't have been me, but that was my birthday and that was incredible. Like I got real emotional thinking, how far has my life come in 7 months?
Yeah, it's just like a really full, meaningful and meaning making living.
Right. Nobody gets, I always hear you don't get a second chance at life. And for some reason I do. And I don't know why, but I have to make the most of it. And I don't want to fill that up with intoxicating things.
Yeah. It is a really just an unbelievable story, and you're sharing just a little part of it. Has something surprised you about you in the past 10, 12 months, since you are on different path?
I would say probably the honesty. I mean, I guess I never would have thought I wouldn't like to drink. I always thought that was going to be a lifetime thing. But now that I'm done drinking, I really feel better. I don't feel the urge, at least now. There might be some days I'll think about it, but I don't really feel the urge. But I would say the honesty that I speak with now. I felt like I had so many demons. Like that closet back there was full of skeletons. And I never wanted to open that door. And by drinking and all that, I could mask all that and keep that door shut. And when it came open, I was terrified. But now I've learned that if I just tell the truth and tell people what's going on, I don't have to wake up tomorrow and clear my text messages. I don't have to worry about where my phone is. I don't need to worry about a phone call coming in and somebody spilling my secrets. And I think that's what surprises me the most is the freedom to be honest. That I didn't expect that from me. And now that I have that, it's amazing.
Mm. And it is like a gift you are giving to listeners, just to naming it this way. Freedom from hiding just
Yeah,
changes so much.
it really is. I mean, I got to the point where I would go to bed and I'd wake up in the morning and not know what happened. But
Mhm.
also because when I'd go to bed, I'd be so scared that I did something wrong that I would just delete phone numbers I'd called, text messages I'd sent. I didn't even know what I was doing at times. So I would just delete everything. Well, then I'd wake up in the morning and be, not only was I blacked out and had no idea what I had done, but
Mhm.
I also had deleted any evidence of it so that I couldn't remember what I'd done. And like I said, I use that as my get out of jail free card. Like
Mhm.
there was
Mhm.
two personalities. Here was the sober guy and here was the drunk guy. And he did it all.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there are movies about this kind of lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a drama. It's not
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. Oh, I'm just so happy for you that you're sitting here with me, at this moment of your life, and you are going somewhere, you are heading somewhere else. You have like a new direction in life.
Yeah. I know my story was a little bit different the way it happened. And, I was in Shatterproof with a lot of people that we all had trauma of some sort.
Mhm.
We were all there for something, whether it was alcohol, whether it was drugs, whether it was trauma in your life or childhood. And I knew I was no different from anybody with that.
Mhm.
The difference I think in my story is I think there was a lot of it combined that I had such a high PTSD score that I
Mhm.
had so much PTSD. I had been drinking for a long career worth of drinking, 40 years. I had no consequences. I had not got a DUI. I had not wrecked a car. I had not lost a job. I felt like I was maintaining, if you will, with
Mhm.
that. And then the suicide attempt, the way that I escaped that was there was one other guy in camp that same thing. He escaped a
Mhm.
suicide attempt by the gun misfiring, and we talked about it every day. We don't know how, why I
Mhm.
was given a second chance. And I felt like when I was in Shatterproof, it was so I could tell my story.
Mhm.
But I fought that for the better part of a year, saying my story is no different than anybody else's. It's no more special than some of the people that I loved that were in Shatterproof with me. They had miraculous stories and had lived through them, and they were tough to me. I wasn't tough. So I didn't know why my story, but after being called, if you will, to tell it, I just finally embraced it that if I can help somebody, I'll tell
Mhm.
it.
Yeah.
I'll do it because I want to help. I don't want anybody to go through what I went through.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
I don't want anybody to put their children and their wives through what I did.
Yeah. And that sounds like new passion or new direction in life, that is very strong.
Right. I'm really hoping that you cannot hear this dog snoring because I'll have to throw him out of the room again.
No, 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 no. I don't hear now any sound. Only you can hear it.
Good, good. Because if people would think, how's this guy sleeping and talking at the same time?
No,
But
but
yeah, it's so I feel that that's really been a big change. I think getting away from the fire department, it was a great career. I loved what I did, but it was changing and it was no longer for me and my brain no longer, I
Mhm.
don't think I could take anymore. I really couldn't. I don't know when the overload hit me of what I had seen or what I was feeling. I've always been pretty emotional, and I think I didn't for years. I thought I could put it away, and I guess I couldn't. I put it back there, but it all finally just came out in one rush.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Yeah. And I actually sense your emotions even as we are talking, but that's the bridge to connection. It makes me to be very interested, in your story. It is easier to trust your story when your eyes are speaking, the tragedy and also resilience at the same time that you are sharing, almost lost your life, because you were thinking you can change, and somehow the addiction and trauma made you think that you are all alone and you were supposed to be changing alone. Like no one with all the trauma is designed to do it alone.
yeah, hearing you say alone brought this to mind. Like on the fire department, we saw traumatic calls from the time I came on the job in '91. When I came on the job, we saw traumatic calls. The difference was as I was as I was a firefighter or a driver or an officer, you're on a rig with four individuals, or there's a total of four individuals on the rig. And after you see something traumatic, you're riding back to the station and you're talking about it and everybody's hashing it through and you're not alone. And as I got promoted up the ranks, I got to the point where I was a battalion chief and assistant chief of a district.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget one day I had a horrible, horrible call. And I was driving home, but I'm by myself. I'm in the car and I was crying, but I couldn't talk to anybody about it. And it was way across town. So when I got back to my firehouse, it was shift change. All my friends were going home.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody was there on the call to experience it with me. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel that call was a catalyst towards me really starting to
Mm-hmm.
feel and I don't blame it on that call.
Sure.
Obviously, I was alone because I was hiding everything else I was doing. But that was just one more thing that made me feel alone in my fire department life as well. Like I never felt alone there. And now I did.
Yeah.
And that being alone was terrible for me. I'm not an alone person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes sense that it could have been, a trigger for just collapse, right? Because who can deal with such a, horrific um, witnessing horrific accidents and then being on your own with that. So that doesn't go well for human beings, to have that experience.
Right. And I think that's why I was a social drinker. Like, I don't
Mhm.
want to say social, like normal people are social drinkers at a party. I mean, I like to be at a bar or I like to be around people or be at a party, usually drinking. It was after that event kind of that I started being alone more and up late drinking. I would call it drinking to the demons. And I would sit up and drink and cry until 2, 3 in the morning, angry that I
Mhm.
couldn't change this. And that started, and again, I was hiding so many things that I was alone. I was alone in my actions. I couldn't tell anybody. I was alone in my drinking because I was sad and crying and I didn't want to be out at a bar when I was doing that. And so I started feeling more alone. And that also brought on the self-hatred
Oh,
until it finally just culminated. And I do a lot of things with community now. Like I love, as weird as this is to say, I love my AA meetings. I have so many friends there. I look forward to them every night I can. Tonight I got a group of dads. We all get together, and man, it's great.
mhm.
You guys they're just the nicest bunch of guys.
Hmm. Yeah. And when you think about it, you were able to that need. It's not only about drinking alcohol, it's also about thirst for that belonging to the group of other drinkers, right? And the same need you were able to creatively transfer it to a group of recovering men, or others. And that's goes well when you are able to still meet that social need, but you are just doing it without alcohol.
Right. And I didn't, and I compounded everything with alcohol. I had a bad bicycle accident in 2018, and the worst concussion I've ever had. And broken collarbone, broke all my ribs, bruised my lung. And one of my brothers say he saw the change in me that day. But I believe that was really when I was isolating a lot more and struggling through that. And I know my drinking got worse after that, because that was before COVID, and then COVID hit, and that was the excuse to drink every day.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, again, I want to say it's not COVID's fault. It's not the bike accident's fault. I already had this in me when I was a junior in high school, and I just found this out recently when I was moving. My wife and I got divorced when I was moving. We were going through my old high school yearbooks, and my junior year yearbook probably had, kids sign it, keep in touch, and have a great summer. I would say there was 20 different autographs in there and signatures, and I would say half of them or more incorporated my drinking and my partying. And I would say of that, half of those said, slow down. You need to stop. And I didn't even realize it. So when I was 17, I was already off and running.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I never quit.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting insight to go through those.
It became a way to hide everything.
Mm-hmm.
Have a good day. The Broncos won, I would have a drink. The Broncos lost, I'd wash it down with a drink. Mm-hmm. Whatever it was, I wanted to have a drink incorporated.
Yeah.
And it just made me not feel. I didn't have to feel anything.
Yeah, that certainly is the job of alcohol, to numb, and it does for many people. It serves its purpose. How is your relationship with emotions and feelings now?
Great. I am enjoying my recovery more than I thought I would. I feel like I can handle things. I didn't used to. Everything stressed me out. My son got in a car accident the other day. Pretty minor. I mean, he didn't get injured, and he's older. He has a wife and a daughter. And before I would have almost felt like I had to fix it right now, or control him, or scold him even for tailgating or driving too close, or whatever the case may be. And now I was more concerned for his feelings. Like, are you okay? And you got to be thankful you were alone in the car. Your infant child wasn't in the car with you. You didn't get hurt. Nobody else got hurt. And a car is just a car. We can fix it. And I never would have been an experience like that. So I do notice that I think about other people's feelings that I never did before. So I try to respond with, what's the next right thing to do? And I think that has been enjoyable. And, realizing that I want to do the next right thing is fantastic. And my sponsor told me early on, he says, I want you to understand, you don't have to drink anymore. It wasn't a matter of, I just thought, you're right. I had to drink for everything. And now I don't. So my recovery is I'm adulting now. I'm actually adulting. I never did before. I liked that teenage, crazy gym, high school troublemaker. I liked that guy. And I realized he just led me down a bad path because he got worse. It's a progressive disease. And now I don't have to be that guy. I all of a sudden can be 54. Yeah. And enjoy my granddaughter, and enjoy my dogs that are snoring in the background, and enjoy being alone, reading a book.
Yeah. And it happened, just for the listeners who are maybe questioning, have a inner conflict about, how they will do emotions, stress. This is inspirational to know that once you let go of that main coping mechanisms, there is a certain space that one creates, and then there are other possibilities. That's what I hear you say.
Right. And there is. It's hard. I will never tell anyone it's easy to go from drinking and doing the things I was doing to not. It's very difficult, because the wreckage of your past is still there, and it's going to come up. is just your coping mechanisms, like you say, are so much better. And we talked one night about triggers, and whether it was, I could blame all the triggers. Oh, well, I had a PTSD. Oh, I had my family and I got in an argument. Those aren't the triggers. I'm the trigger. I'm the trigger that says the way we're going to deal with this is to drink. And as long as I can control this one trigger and find coping skills for all the others that are adult, that are rational, then I can get through it. And it has been a rough year. There's been rough times, but I don't feel the stress. I don't feel the anxiety. Something that would normally spin me out of control would be, say, my dryer breaking at 4 a.m. and I can't get dry pants for work, which happened to me 2 days ago. So I'm up at 4 trying to clean my pants and get ready for work. That would have just spun me out. I would have been so angry all day, realizing I have to spend the money, that as soon as I got off work, I would have started drinking. Yeah. Well, now I just was laughing about it, like, this is crazy. One more thing. But I'm okay with that. Because I have coping skills.
Yes.
And I've learned so many of those at Shatterproof, and have just continued, again, like a progressive alcoholism. I've progressed these coping skills to get better. It's been March 28th, 2024 was the day I attempted suicide. So we are just a year and almost a year and a half. I mean, not a year and a half, a year and a month away. So it's been 14 months or 12 months worth of learning, and it's work, but it's not hard work. It's enjoyable work because you make yourself feel better.
Yeah. Who would say that you would look at this anniversary, in some ways of like, you didn't know that, but you were symbolically signing a new lease on life, like a completely new, renewed lease on a new life.
Right. Yeah. It's just so many things can be different. And, in AA, when you get your year, you go to a meeting and you announce it's a year, and everybody claps for you and they give you a chip and give you a hug. And, I go to a different meeting every night. So this meeting didn't know I had a year, so I had to tell them. And then this meeting didn't know. And it got to the point I didn't want to tell them anymore. And somebody gave me some really good advice. They said, you're not celebrating you. By you saying you got a year, all these people are feeling hope that they can get a year, or they're feeling grateful that they were able to help you get a year. So you announce that you got a year because it helps them. And really, that's it. I don't feel like I did it, but my sponsor, he should have been there celebrating every time because he helped me get that year. And friends in the program that call me and say, hey, I got to check in with you. Or there's friends I have from Shatterproof that when one or two of us has a bad day, we all talk. And those guys should be celebrating that year with me, because they've got me here. They've helped get me here. I couldn't have done it alone. The first word in AA is we. And there's a reason, because it's a we program. You cannot successfully do this alone. You can quit drinking alone, but you're not going to change your inside, your brain, your character that's dragging you down without a lot of help.
Yeah. And Jim, that we is really a foundation for really recovering those stress-related medical conditions, like when alcohol drinking becomes alcoholism, right? Or when PTSD becomes like this, just a complex trauma, right? And depression, anxiety, right? Like the we is foundation for all of these conditions, because it's also like a lack of it's a lot of isolation when people start experiencing those symptoms,
Right. Yeah. We in AA has got me to not drinking and to work on my character defects. We, when I was in Shatterproof, got me to embrace a community that was struggling as well and try to help them. We were the counselors and the people that helped me. Before, I was like, I'm not going to quit drinking. I will deal with my PTSD. I'm not hurting anybody else, and I am not going to ask for help. Well, that put me where I was
Yeah.
because I didn't realize that my drinking was not an I problem. My children were affected by that,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
my anger and my depression, that was not an I problem because I was taking my anger out on my spouse or taking it out on somebody on the streets or somebody in traffic.
Mm-hmm.
That was not an I problem. That was a we problem that I was creating.
Mm-hmm.
And my PTSD, I looked at that I'm the only one that's suffering through this. Yet there were other people that witnessed the same things I witnessed, but I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't reaching out to them to say, can I help you through this? I
Mm-hmm.
was going home and saying, is everybody good? That was my help. And now I'm going to go home and drink about this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So really, we is everything. And I wish I would have known it didn't make me weak to ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I would have believed that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I never believed that. I never believed that asking for help does not make you weak
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
or fearful.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
Oh,
does.
if anyone listens, then either agrees with you or is really curious about, how to let go of that either fear or that distorted belief, right? Just kind
Right.
um, and I can imagine that it had been reinforced for many, many first responders also by their training or by their just many other cultural stuff. Just being a man in this society, right? Like you learn like you should be this way. This is the role of a man, right? Like never feel emotions and fixing everything.
Right. I looked up to my father. My dad he was one of my heroes. And he never instilled that in me. He never told me don't show emotion. My dad was a very emotional man,
Mhm.
but he still was Superman to me. Like he wasn't scared of anything. He'd take this on or take that act on. And he didn't know how to do plumbing, but he'd take it on and he'd fix it. And,
Mhm.
I always looked at him like that guy's tough. And so I grew up with this. I got to be tough, even though I was an emotional person. I cried a lot and I knew I had that emotional side. I felt that made me weak. So I felt like I had to overcome that. And of course, with what I did for a living, I thought that had a certain machismo to it. Like
Mhm.
I can run in a burning building and I can grab a person and I can do this or that, or blood doesn't bother me. And,
Mhm.
I felt like I was tough. And all the way down to what I would say to people. People ask you all the time as a first responder, what's the worst thing you've ever saw? And I hate that question.
Mhm.
Um, but people would ask me, what's the worst thing you ever saw? And I would always say, I'm not going to tell you that. I'll tell you the best thing. And I would tell them some other story
Mhm.
because I felt that me telling them showed weakness, showed that I was weak, that something bothered me. When really I used the excuse of it would be too much for you. It was just one more way to make me feel like I was tough. I
Mhm.
would tell you, Ivana, but it's way too powerful for you to deal with. But I'm Superman. I can deal with it. When I
Mhm.
wish I would have talked about it the whole time.
Yeah, right, right. Even now, when you are talking to me about it, I can sense that there was in the past, you turned it off, you masked it, right? And you couldn't tell your story because it was too threatening, maybe for your identity.
There was shortly before my suicide attempt, about 3 weeks or so, there was a man that drove to the firehouse and actually committed suicide on the front apron, which is the ramp. And what's difficult about that is we've all, as first responders, seen a lot of suicide. It was that it came to our house. It was like the suicide came to our house. And
Mm.
I could see the members of my crew were struggling and we called for help. But I remember in the debriefing, a couple of them broke down and were crying, and I wanted to so bad. I was hurting so bad, but I refused because I was the leader, and I
Mm.
thought I cannot show weakness, and
Mm.
that would have been the best time for me to show weakness because
Mm.
then they wouldn't have felt alone.
Mm.
And
Yeah. Mm.
I didn't, and I kind of, excuse me,
No, you don't have to apologize.
I kind of feel like I let them down that day because I should have showed how much it bothered me and maybe that would have helped them. And then I would have really asked for help for myself instead of just for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that was a big one. And that looking back now, I can analyze it and figure out a lot of the issues. At the time, I couldn't. I just went home and had drinks about it the next day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. At that moment, it sounds like just that fear of showing vulnerability was still bigger than actually unknown, right? Like what could have happened if I did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can't regret it. Those guys luckily, I think they're all doing real well and help themselves. And I know I talked to a few of them about it and they're doing good. The raw emotion of that day of thinking, man, I fought so hard to hide this.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one more demon in the closet. It was my drinking, my cheating, my lying. All these things were demons in the closet. And this was just one more I shoved in there. My closet doors broke. I couldn't fit any more in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I felt that made me some sort of better man, and it actually broke me.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah.
But through recovery, through this process, through the WE program and the help, I realized it's okay. I mean, like I didn't apologize just right there and say I'm sorry because I was crying. I apologized because I felt like I was delaying the process because I couldn't talk. But I'm not afraid to show emotion. I'm not afraid of that. It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I couldn't talk and I needed to take a few minutes to swallow it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for clarification. Yeah, to me, it's like a real success in vulnerability, because the vulnerability is really what connects us, to others. Not that we are vulnerable all the time, but when actually we feel vulnerable,
Right.
be finding courage to share it, that is the gel, that's the connection, and that's the, freedom of and trust, everything, freedom to be self, and it builds trust. And I'm like really happy for you that you can still experience that differently, like in this lifetime, that you didn't die to suicide, but that also even you have hopefully a few decades in front of you, and you can do it differently. That's what I'm really happy for you.
I hope I have a few decades left. I mean, who knows? I'm 54. I don't have 5 decades left in me. I doubt. But I have a few. I have a couple, maybe. If I'm lucky, I have 2 left in me. Yeah, I just want to experience it. And since I joined or been in recovery, my son and his wife were pregnant when I went into recovery. And that was a bad day, admitting to them how I felt I let them down and almost wasn't there for them and their daughter. But now I get to see her. She's 7 months old, and just, oh my gosh, it's my heart is full. I'm like the Grinch that just, his heart kept swelling. And that's how I feel now. She's my everything, and she's not the reason I'm sober. I love being sober for her. And I hope one day at a time that I'm sober for her whole life, but I'm sober for me because I do not want to be that person anymore. I want to be this guy.
Yeah. And how do you see yourself today?
I see myself as an honest individual, which was something I never saw myself as. There's good and bad days. I see myself as struggling, and the past always sneaks up. It's always going to sneak up. You can't forget what you did, but I can quit shaming myself, because the shame is what brought me to a point of hatred. And I don't want to shame myself. I don't want to ever repeat it. And I can't hide what I did. But that doesn't mean I need to walk around with my head down anymore and sad about it.
Yeah.
Because the only way to get better is to move on from it. There's a line in my favorite movie ever is Lonesome Dove. It's a mini series from back in the 80s. And in it, Robert Duvall says they're going to bury one of the guys. He says, the best thing you can do with death is right on from it. And I kind of take that line like, you're not going to forget somebody's dead back there, but you need to ride away from it and go see the horizon, move to a better place. And that's kind of how I look at with me. The best thing I can do is ride off from my death. I died that day. One part of me died that day. Yeah. Thank God. And I can ride off from that. I'm never going to forget it's back there, but I can ride off from it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that we couldn't really close and land on any other better quote, you know. So yeah. I really, really appreciate you to share your story with us.
Well, thank you so much for asking me. I feel honored that you would ask me, and especially after the classroom session that we shared together was so meaningful to me.
Yeah, yeah, and this has been such a beautiful conversation that I had with you and the other day as well. And I just want listeners to know, you know, there is hope, even in the most hopeless place one can ever find self. And yeah,
there's hope there. I thought there was none, and there's a lot of it out here, and it's because of people that are in the program that want to show you that hope.
Yeah. And I wish you, you know, this just continues growth and going through the struggles, going through them, you know, and grow from these different experiences. And of course, they are not going to be only struggling, but also just these beautiful experiences, your family, being with them, that you can now fully really be with them, and every moment can be experienced very well.
Yeah. Thank you.
So listeners, I hope you enjoyed this conversation, and we'll bring some new story for you next month. Thank you for tuning in. The First Responder Families podcast is sponsored by Shadowproof at FHE Health, a specialized treatment program for first responders with mental health and/or substance use issues. For more information about our show and our services, check out FHEHealth.com. The podcast website also has a place where you can share your ideas or questions for future shows. If you are struggling, we want to help. Feel free to call us at 844-714-3403 or visit FHEHealth.com. We look forward to having you join us for our podcast next month. Until then, take care.